Hey, welcome again to another episode of Instructional Designers in Offices, drinking coffee, drinking tea, drinking hot cocoa, drinking cold beverages as well. But don't forget, every episode of Instructional Designers in Offices, drinking coffee, is brought to you by the team here at Domino, empowering L&D teams to develop, manage, and deliver impactful learning content at scale. Paul and I are both team members here at Domino. And joining us this week is Carl Kopp. Carl, you've been with us on Idiotic several times in the past, but there may be some folks in the world who haven't met you yet, in our world of instructional design and learning and development, I should say. So introduce yourself to the folks that are joining us and the folks that are listening.
Yeah, fantastic to be here. Thanks for having me back. I think I got my action first learning in for the, my action in for the day with that dance. Woo! I was getting tired there at the end.
I know.
That's a lot of like, wow,
Okay.
worked out
but
some
so-
creaky neck issues.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Three guys who really can't dance on the, anyway. So at least one. So anyway, yeah, Carl Kopp, professor of instructional design and technology at Commonwealth University. Now, if you're on before, it was Bloomsburg. I haven't moved. Bloomsburg consolidated with two of her sister schools, and I primarily teach a graduate program, teaching students to design, develop, and deliver online instruction. And then I also dabble in games and gamification and how to make learning impactful and meaningful and lead to business results.
Mm-hmm. And like almost every episode that we've had lately, we have the specter of AI hanging
What
around.
is that? I've never heard of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And so there's a lot going on, and you've got a very unique position because, you're not one of the folks who are necessarily doing instructional design, et cetera, within a company. You've got this kind of higher level potential view of things that are changing, et cetera. And what are some of the things that you're finding in how you're approaching even telling other people about, teaching other people about the work that we've always done and or the work that we're going to be doing?
So in fact, just last night, I teach a class called Instructional Game Design. And last night was the AI version. So I was like, oh, you can do this with Claude and you can do this with ChatGPT. One of the students is like, well, what are we going to do? Right. Because it can like poof, make stuff. But there's a couple things I'm seeing that the industry really is needing and thinking about. And it's kind of interesting because it's a little retro and it's a little forward. So for many, many years, we're all about content, like how much content can we create and get content out there. But now we're getting to that, people talking about measurement. People have been talking about measurement all the time, but now it's like, okay, well, we've got the content that can be created almost at a fingertip. What's the differentiator? The differentiator is designing instruction for learners to practice and become proficient at what they're doing, not just having the knowledge. And a lot of times I'll go to a group of people and say, how many people know you should exercise every day? And like everybody raises their hand, right? And I said, how many of you exercise every day? And everybody's hand goes down, right? So just because we know how to do something, right, doesn't mean we actually do it. And one of the things that has been missing for training for a long time is this practice, right? We think we can tell you something. We think you will then know it. We think you will then go out and do it. And that's not true. We need to create a practice environment. And that's where I think the value of instructional designers are there, because we can leverage AI a little bit to practice, but AI doesn't have the insights into how to set up that practice, how to correct what people are doing, looking at somebody face to face, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of really valuable elements that we can do in terms of forcing practice to the next level. And that's, I think, where we can have some real impact.
Yeah. And talked about this on Idiotic, forever, that shift from simply pushing information at people to actually having something that results in behavior change, that results in, the improvements or the things that are core to the organization, bottom lines, et cetera. So yeah, if we're able to step a little bit out of the role of gathering the content and reformatting it in a sense, then we can focus on maybe those better value things.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's up to us. Like one of our charges now, I think, is to set up that learning ecosystem. They used to call it learning surrounds or whatever. We also know from the literature, our own experience, all that stuff, that one learning experience isn't going to change behavior, right? They've even done research fascinating. So if you have a heart attack, the next 6 to 8 months, oh, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to exercise every day. I'm going to quit smoking. I'm not going to eat, whatever. And about 6 to 8 months, very consistently, behavior sneaks back in. And so think about that. That's something critical, like life and death. So think about like a new sales model, right? Like whatever, I'll just go back to the old sales model, right? We as designers in the age of AI really need to create these surrounds or these ecosystems that will help improve the performance of the organization. And I think that's moving beyond training to the sense of performance support back. And again, it's like you're in a, Gloria Gary was talking about performance support back when I started my career. So, I mean, it's come full circle and it will go full circle again. But I think that's where we can really add value to what's going on. And we have the knowledge, the framing, and the ability to make an impact that way.
And I was thinking about, where do you think that some of the reasons why people weren't already doing this, and what was stopping them from and basically creating those more practice, more interactive, action first situations? And specifically, how do you think AI helps change that to enable them, or to help them to create perhaps new behaviors that were harder to establish and keep before?
So I think there's a number of multifaceted areas where that has an impact. So one of the areas is, I think that we got caught up. I mean, it took a long time to create content, right? You got to interview the subject matter experts. You got to make sure it's right. Maybe you have to observe behavior. So we didn't have a whole lot of time to focus on those other areas. AI has changed that, right? We can create content relatively quickly. The other thing is we had very difficult scalability. So one of the things that I think is fascinating is like branching scenarios, right? So you put up a traditional branching scenario in the old days and you have 3 choices and the learner goes, I wouldn't do any of those, right? Or, oh, that one's the longest, it must be correct, right? So they would kind of psych it out. But now with AI, you can talk to it, it can evaluate it and go, oh, okay, like, so it's like you're having a real conversation with somebody. So I think that's one way that AI can support performance. The other thing that is really, I think, an interesting element is, rather than creating courses, I think part of the future is going to be creating chatbots. So we are going to be able to create these autonomous agents, bots, whatever, who are going to be able to coach me through a process where, so if you go back, so a couple of like fascinating things, again, go forward, is one of probably the best instructional models ever was the journeyman apprentice model. The journeyman, if they were good, they could adapt, they could give you stretch projects, they could give you one-to-one feedback. And then when we went to scale training, that all went away. And when we put learning online, we lost a huge opportunity. So instead of saying, oh, now we can individualize the training, we took the broadcast model of a instructor in front of 1,000 people and said, that's online learning, right? And so we automated that. But now AI is going to allow us to individually, whatever I say, it can respond to me within a model or a framework or an element. So an example is, I've got students in my class, and we used to do, we would play a game and then we'd break apart the game, deconstruct it, figure out what makes it work, what's the learning goal, what's the game goal, what motivates people in the game. And so now I've created a little chatbot, and I say, okay, now you interact with the chatbot for 15 minutes and it debriefs them. And last night I was debriefing them about the chatbot, and they're like, yeah, the first version of it was pretty clunky and didn't work really well. She said, but they said, but now it works very well. And so I just did a few tweaks to it, such as giving it more specific assignment, telling it what not to say, giving it, I even said, have the approach it with the, kind of a lens of, Dr. Carl Kopp. And so it kind of knows, I guess, what I do, because I'm all over the internet. So it doesn't work for everybody, but
Yeah.
if you put stuff out there. So anyway, so it now helps them focus more effectively. So I think we as designers, as part of that ecosystem that we're building, are going to be building these bots and agents and going to help people, not with content, but with performance. And when it can measure your performance and give you exact specific advice, another example, Bloom, who the famous Bloom's taxonomy gentleman, actually did a study called, and he found the 2 sigma problem. And in the study, he found that people who were tutored, now this was, back in the 50s, 60s, so it's not really automated, but people who were tutored did 2 sigma better in their scoring than people who were just in a regular classroom environment. And now, again, we can add that tutor to everybody. So we have this tutor in our pocket now that we can carry around with us and can answer any questions and do any things that we want to do, give us feedback, play structural games with us. Even eventually it will have sensors. So, hey, Carl, you're moving, let's say you're on a manufacturing floor and it's kind of a chaotic environment. Hey, you're moving too fast, or you need to slow down, or you need to do that stuff. But no matter how much technology you have, we still have to have that human judgment, that peer-to-peer interaction, that aha moment, that understanding, the awareness. I'll give the example. It's kind of a horrific one, but of the plane in JFK that hit the fire truck, right? There wasn't, the transponder supposedly wasn't on the fire truck, so nobody could see it. But still, the gentleman in the fire truck, or individuals in the fire truck, have to also still be aware, right? So I think one of the issues with AI and creating learning from AI is we still have to have the human in the loop. And if we advocate our responsibility as designers or responsibilities as managers or whatever, that's going to get us in trouble.
And I like the broadcast, and that's what we did so we can scale. And I think of organizations that they're all, hey, it doesn't make sense to create the training. It's not worth the effort there. Just shadow Johnny or Sally on the job. The journeyman, except maybe a less formal one. The journeyman was a very formal approach to it there. And those AI bots, it can personalize it like that supervisor or mentor that's in there. And I was thinking, it's like, well, in the journeyman, they're actually really learning those things and then applying them on the job because they're working with that person. That person is evaluating it. And I'm wondering where, because some of the chatbot and stuff, yeah, they're, helping them perhaps learn or answer some questions there. But where does it, and then maybe that's where the instructional designer and it fits in, is where does it come into, hey, I just look at it for an answer and don't really learn it. There's not really a program, a normal, like I think of the journeyman. Yes, I have a mentor going through, but I'm going through somewhat formalized program, either through the cult or the guild or the certification or whatever.
Mhm.
So how is that? Because I haven't really seen that with the chat bots applied. How does that kind of fit in? And like you said, how do we not just say, hey, take over?
Right.
We don't need to do the
Well, I mean, so a couple things. So one, I think we tend to use the term learning as like a monolithic term, but there's all kinds of different learning, right? Learning to tie my shoe is different than learning to do brain surgery, which is learning how to comfort a colleague who's had a loss, right? All those are learning, but they're different kinds of learning. So some of the learning that has to occur has to be human to human, peer to peer learning. So we can't give up on that. And some of the learning that we do is this content that we're like, I need to know this acronym just because, it's used in the company, but man, it would be a better way to learn it than to sit in the class and have the instructor lecture me about, these acronyms, right? So the true performance support and knowing where to fit has to come from our judgment of putting together this blended learning experience. I don't mean blended learning like flipped classroom video, but I mean blended with AI and humans. Like we're going to have to work side by side. And I tend to try to view AI more as a partner in what I'm doing rather than leading or replacing what I'm doing. So it gives me kind of a group. And to your question, interestingly, about the chat, like a bot, using multiple bots. So you might have an assessment bot to see, well, how well did Carl interact with the bot, or how well did he take this knowledge and actually apply it to what he's doing? Because one of the things that we tend to do is we think, oh, we'll just create one bot and it can kind of do everything. But actually, the more specialized we create the bots, the better off that bot performs. and is going to perform. So if we create, kind of a team of bots for each person, something that we couldn't have before. So now that one can assess what's happening, one can look at my interpersonal, conversational skills, one can give me coaching, one can give me content, so I can have this team behind me in terms of what I'm doing. And then me as either the human, and I think it's going to be, I go back to a lot of like when word processing first came out, everybody was doing these newsletters and they were horrible. Oh, I have 50 fonts. Let's put 50 fonts on the page. This is awesome. Oh, I've got, clip art. Let's put clip art everywhere. Oh, I have a paper clippy. So it was like a disaster, right? And so people that knew design actually rose to the top because they could better leverage those tools. And same thing. So, for example, an operations manager, while she could sit down and create this team of bots and develop the pots and figure out where she wanted to be, she's trying to run the company, right? She's trying to run her division. So she doesn't have time to do that. So instructional designers can come in, use task analysis, which we've kind of, thrown away with I don't know where that we lost that, but somewhere we lost like task analysis, observational analysis, figure out what she's doing, provide assistance and help, and then let her go and perform at a very high level because we are orchestrating and managing all of her virtual team members. So I think that's a way that we can really add value and think about how an instructional designer fits in. Also, right now with AI, understanding the sequencing and understanding the delivery of the instruction and being able to say, hey, Carl, you look frustrated. What's up with that? Are you not getting this? Does this not make sense? Or, hey, I talked to your boss yesterday and he said you were struggling with this. Can I help some way? So those human contacts and elements, now I'm hoping AI will give us more time to do that. I think what's happened in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, when we've downsized, we've lost space to think, space to figure things out, space to make connections. Then hopefully with the AI, that'll give us some of the space to do, even space to practice. Like I always, it always amazes me that training, like we talked about this before, has very little practice components. And if you look at somebody like, I always like to use the analogy like Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady kind of knows football. Like by the time he got to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was a pretty decent football player. I didn't like him because we were Steelers and we played New England and they would beat us every year and we couldn't go to the playoffs. But he was pretty good. But Tom Brady would practice every single day. He already knew everything about football, but he would go and practice. In fact, Tom Brady said he liked to practice better than the game sometimes because he was getting better and better and better. But we take a salesperson and go, yeah, I've been doing this for 15 years. I don't need to practice. I know what I'm doing. Really? Do you have 15 years of experience or do you have 1 year 15 times?
Mhm.
Right. So we have to break that thought that we don't need to practice to get better. We can just keep doing everything because I got news for you. That salesperson is practicing on potential customers. And sometimes they get it right and sometimes they don't. And you're losing sales. So the idea of using AI to help us practice and get better is something. I was talking to a life science company and they introduced practice-based AI scenarios and the usage was something like 20 times a day. I mean, these folks were practicing 20. I mean, amazing kind of stuff. Once you give somebody a judgment-free, personalized, targeted practice opportunity, they tend to take advantage of it. Or at least that group did. So I think that's something that we can craft as designers of instruction to make that happen.
You said something earlier about with the AI giving us space to think and maybe apply and do some of those things that we've never had time or not in the recent times had time to go ahead and do. But I'm also thinking about all the other innovations and how business has treated them. And often, I think people in the audience will feel this too, is that, oh, that means you can do more with less, meaning either you need to do more or we need less people, aka we don't need you anymore, or we just need 2 of your colleagues, which eventually evaporates in any space that would have been created by that. And I'm wondering, because you mentioned earlier measurement and value and putting some of those things in, how do you think some of those things are helping change the equation so this doesn't just become another, oh, everybody can do PowerPoint. I can
Right.
convert a PowerPoint into e-learning, and we just turn out, and I've seen and people complain of, now I just have AI slop course that's even worse than the PowerPoint converted course.
Yeah, I always thought, who wants to learn leadership from an AI avatar? Like,
Mhm.
they've never led anything, yet here they are lecturing me on leadership, which I always thought was really interesting. A couple of things. I think so let's do a continuum. So on one end, worst case scenario. So for example, again, go to the TSA accident, unfortunately, where two controllers were doing the job of like four controllers. And they said, oh yeah, that happens a lot. Well, that's not good enough, right? Because you need to, so you can only cut so far before it really starts to bleed. So they
Mhm.
didn't have anybody like looking over the ground, right? One guy was air coming in, one was going out. No one's looking at, what was moving around on the ground. So in a lot of cases, organizations have cut or done that too far, and they're starting to feel the implications of that, especially if you look in AI, which a lot of these organizations are like, oh, we're going to replace the AI. And then a few months later, they're like, ooh, can you guys come back? Because we can't do all this with AI right now. So I think you're seeing some of that. I think that's also going to be a little bit of the backlash. And I think what we need to do is argue for, because a lot of times, again, in learning and development, we sometimes fall into the role of order takers. We just do what people tell us to do. And now I think we need to be more proactive. Like, and I always say, like a doctor, right? So a doctor will tell you, hey, you need to stop smoking. Well, I don't want to stop smoking. Yeah, I know, but you need to do this. It's going to be painful, but you have to do it because otherwise the alternative is not good. And so you don't like to hear that medicine, but you heed it because it's a doctor telling you that your life's on the line. In organizations, I think we need to be kind of like the doctors. Like, here's what we've noticed. Here's what we're analyzing. Like, we're in such a good position. If you think of the training of looking at what people need to learn, what people need to do on their jobs, what performance is needed within the organization, who else is looking at all those different elements of it? Like we are. We're looking at the human element and how they get from point A to point B. We're looking at the systems and how you train people to do those systems. We're looking at the goals and outcomes and how you can reach those goals and outcomes. So if we assert ourselves a little bit more and say, hey, yeah, you could do this, but here's some possible consequences. And do you really want to deal with those consequences? We're in, I think, a position to think about that and to help push that out there. And one of the things that we can do is say, look, we're not content jockeys, right? We are performance improvement professionals, and this is what we're doing. We're helping improve the performance of the organization, not just pumping out, content. And so I think pushing back a little bit on that is going to help the profession in general, help us individually as practitioners in the environment, and help us moving forward. The other thing I find interesting when we think about the whole AI landscape is I think of it as kind of continuum. I mean, I run into companies like Bloomsburg or Commonwealth. We have what we call the Institute for Interactive Technologies, and we do project work to give the students experience, and we work with companies, and it's a really good environment. But we, more often than I can believe it, in 2026, will run into a company and say, hey, we want to put our learning online. We don't have any online instruction. Like, it's 2026. You don't have any online instruction. No, we
What did you
need
throw
help
in
with
COVID?
that. Right. I'm like, what did you get? Zoom, but nothing like, um, so, and I think AI is the same way. I think there's some organizations that know AI, security reasons or whatever. We're not touching AI. We have some organizations, we're just going to use it for content and outlines. We have some that are going to use it for intelligent agents. We're going to have some, we're going to try to automate the entire LMS process with AI. We're going to try. So I think we have that huge continuum of unevenly distributed use of AI. One of my favorite phrases is by William Gibson, who says, the future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And I think that's where we are. So I think there's a lot of advantages of being a educational pundit or instructional design pundit, saying, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. The sky is falling. If you don't know AI inside and out, then you're in trouble. I don't think it's quite that urgent. I think it's foolish not to know AI, but I don't think it's at this point danger, right? Unless you want to work, if the bigger the company, the more likely they are to use AI and processes and procedures and things like that. But I think there's time. I don't think the existential angst that a lot of people are feeling isn't going to hit us right away, right? I mean, again, we thought paper was going to be replaced by 2026, right? We've got paper all over the place, right? So we thought buggy whips are going to be, we still have buggy whips, right? I mean, not as widespread, but narrow use cases. We still have that technology. So the future is always an and, not an or.
Something that we haven't said out loud, Carl, is that, and it's just there behind your shoulder, you do have a new book called Action First Learning. And I think part of what we've been discussing is a reflection of your thoughts in that book. But I guess tell us a little bit more about the book and what you're hoping it can do for folks.
Yeah. So the idea behind Action First Learning is that we can no longer passively provide content because it's not value add, right? So, okay, then what do we do? Like we've been creating instruction, like, okay, here's our 4 objectives, here's an introduction, and so this book says, well, wait a minute, what types of instructional approaches get people up and moving, both figuratively and literally, in instruction? So the book goes into detail. So I open every chapter with kind of a challenge, like here's the action I want you to do. Then we talk about examples of actual companies using Action First Learning. Then we talk about the principles for that element. And then we talk about how you could use AI to assist you in that. So for example, I have a chapter on using on card games. I'm noticing a really interest. Several people in the past few months have come to me and said, hey, Carl, I've developed this card game for learning. Can we talk about it? Can you evaluate or look at it? So there's a little bit of a pushback against all this digital experience, a little bit more going to analog. So there's a chapter in that on the book that talks about how do you use card games to facilitate thought, action, and activity and practice. So it turns out if you're cognitive technique, so for example, you might say, well, Carl, in my 50 years working in an insurance company, I've never had to break out a deck of cards. Yeah, that's true. But you have had to categorize and filter different types of accident reporting. And you can do that with a card game very easily. This goes in this pile, this goes here. So you're using the same cognitive process, but maybe the tools are different. And when you start to have this physical touching of elements, it really makes a difference in terms of cognition. And we know that from the research. So the book is about how do we switch from a content focus to an action and a performance focus. And that's really what the book is about. So that's kind of why I wrote it. I was looking at like all this instruction, looking at AI coming up and then going, wait a minute. We already know that having people take action is much better than having them passively absorb content. And with AI coming, our opportunity is to make it action focused, to make it working. So we're working on, and it doesn't have to be like super complex. Like, so for example, we're working on 360 video for our nursing department where nursing students can click on areas of potential bacterial infection rather than being lectured like, oh, you can look here, you can look here, you can look here. Here's a patient's room, find the places. And that has much more retention, recall, and application than a bulleted list. Like bulleted list, I would say, don't exist in nature, right? We've made bulleted lists. In order for nature to work, we need to go around the room. You need to do physical thing. You need to think about it. So those are the kind of elements that make it happen.
So that was a great example of kind of the nurses. And I'm thinking, so a lot of the principles that you're talking about there is instead of the traditional explain how it works, explain the situation, and then maybe have a practice exercise, but a multiple choice because that was easy, is to go ahead and have a more real life, whether it's VR or whatever. I mean, just put them into that situation and have them learn and apply what they're doing while they're learning while they're doing it, learning by mistake, obviously in a safe situation, rather than necessarily explaining everything right away. Is that a lot of it, or what are some other
Okay.
examples?
So again, Dewey, who talked about experiential learning right in the 1800s and how powerful that was. And we just got away from all kinds of experiential elements, I think, and somewhat to our detriment. But if you look at some of the research and theories, so Malcolm Knowles says adult learners learn best when they know they don't know something. And so if you're passively giving somebody content, they're like, yeah, okay, I kind of know that. I know that. Yeah, yeah, I kind of know that. But do you know that? Now,
Mhm.
put you in a situation and having you perform. Now, you know that you don't know it. I know that you don't know it. And your peers know that you don't know it. But if you do it in kind of an exercise or activity way, it's non-threatening, right? We still have to have the psychological safety of doing that. One of the things that, I've been studying games for a little bit, and what we know that when things are wrapped in a game, it adds an extra level of psychological safety because people go, oh, okay, well, it wasn't me, it was the game, right?
Hmm.
Or, yeah, okay, somebody has to lose, so that's fine. I'm okay with it, right? Rather than, hey, Carl, you didn't run that meeting well. Oh, okay, well, what do you mean I didn't run it well? Of course I ran it well. You didn't look. So in the game, the meeting well, and you lose, you're like, okay, well, next time I need to do this and this, right? So those are the kinds of things that are in action first learning. So when we put somebody to action, then they figure out that they don't know something, and then they're more eager to learn it. And it goes back to a lot of times I like to go back to how children learn. You could tell a child till you're blue in the face, don't touch that stove, it's hot. But what's the very next thing they're going to do after you tell them that? They're going to touch the stove, right? And you're like, well, wait a minute. Like, I just told you not to touch it. And then they get hurt and they get upset, whatever, because we humans need that validation. Like, okay, I need to know that that's really the situation. I need to know that that's true. And even though you told me. So in a lot of cases, even when we get older, we do the same thing. Well, I told you not to go, to that place at 6 o'clock in the morning or whatever. I told you you're going to get robbed. What, it happens. So learning's the same way. If we can put a learner in a relatively safe place, where they're not get robbed or anything, but with a safe place and say, okay, do this, and they go, ooh, okay, I didn't do it that well, then they're more open to learning. Then they're going to retain it better. Then they're going to go, aha, we're going to force them to that aha moment. I talk to a lot of people and say, think about one of the things that you struggled to learn, really struggled, and then what happened when you got it? And I have people like, well, back in high school, I remember, algebra, and then all of a sudden I got it. Or back in, I was trying to figure this out, and then I mean, we remember those moments like, oh, I figured this out. Even if it was something like relatively trivial, right? So if we could put learners in situations where they've got to figure it out and learn it. Now, we have to be careful because I can't let you go 4 days trying to figure out, how to use the new ERP system, right? So it has to
Mhm.
be bounded. And so these exercises in action first learning, so there's card games, board games. I talk about AR, I talk about VR, I talk about using chatbots, I talk about in class audience response systems. I talk about using escape rooms. So nothing there is, earth shattering. Like, wow, I've never heard of online, escape room. No, you have, but you haven't seen it framed this way for 2026 and beyond, so that you can leverage this to the best of your ability. So that's kind of what the book's about. It uses the concepts and ideas that I've gathered through the years looking at games and gamification, gauging learning, how adults learn, structural design theory, and put it together. And then the other thing, I know I talk a lot, don't I?
You've got a lot to talk about there.
I teach 3-hour classes at grad school, so
A
an
lot of
hour is
practice.
like nothing. Yeah, it's like, but the other thing that I've done in this book, which is interesting to me, maybe not to anybody else, but whenever you write a book, people give you feedback, and it's always, this is a good book, but you should have had more case studies. So the next book I like put in case studies, and you go, no, that's a good book with case studies, but you need more how-to information. I'm like, okay, now the next one has how-to. So every book is like, yeah, you did this wrong. So this is a culmination, hopefully, of all the previous books and feedback in one book. So I have, step-by-step instruction. I have examples. I have questions to ask yourself. I have AI prompts in there. I have worksheets in there. So I have hopefully everything that, I mean, somebody will say, oh, your book should have had whatever, but I have all those images in there. And then the other thing that has nothing to do with learning at all, but Kevin Thorne, you guys know Kevin, he from Nugget Head, he did action figure superhero drawings for every chapter that introduces every chapter. So I'll show you one that's really cool. And then we've made it like, here's for escape rooms. So there's like the introduction. And then we made that into a coloring book. So there's actually some really interesting research behind people that actually doodle and color in terms of concentration and focus. And so if you go to the ATD book, it's free. Like, you don't even have to buy it. You can download the images as like a coloring book, and you can go paint on those images. So if that's something that you're interested in, go to ATD, search for the book. It's free. You download it, and you can start coloring away. And so that was kind of a fun thing with the book. So nobody asked for that, but I thought it would be a fun thing to add.
I was thinking with you what you were just saying about the action first and changing, and two things that kind of came out is you pointed out it's actually good to be smaller, segmented, and grouped there, so you don't go on and have the big failure, which I think from a design standpoint is a little bit easier in some ways. You don't have to think outside, make the box bigger. And then the other thing is, so often we have the choice in questions and they say you got it right or you got it wrong. And people are like, oh, you need to write corrective feedback and stuff there. And I'm thinking in your situation, that corrective feedback, and I use the term loosely, is really important in there because they're hopefully getting some aha moments and you're helping singing in the core reasons, which some of them may realize, some of them they might not realize in terms of what went right or wrong in those situations, and spending perhaps the time you should have, or maybe more time on that aspect of the training. Can you chat about that?
Yeah, no, well, that's a fantastic point. So if we go to the concept of deliberate practice, so, we heard this, I think, oh my goodness, who's the guy that made it super popular, the 10,000 hours?
Oh, Malcolm
Knowles or
Yeah.
Malcolm. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, it'll come to me after the show, I'm sure. But anyway, he came up with it. He said, oh, he made popular 10,000 hours, but it turns out it's not just 10,000 hours. It's 10,000 hours of deliberate feedback, timely, deliberate, constructive feedback. So one of the things that you can do in action first learning is set up an environment where when someone does fail, you can give them timely, accurate, deliberate feedback on exactly what they did. So one of the nice things about AI is that, let's say you do an AI like simulation, then you can go back, or even during the simulation, I've done them both ways, where it says, hey, Carl, this is what you said to the upset customer. This is why it wasn't effective. This is what you said. This is why it wasn't effective. This is what you should have said. And here's the concept behind it, right? So now I'm knowing, okay, this is what I did wrong. This is how I can correct it in terms of the verbiage. This is the theory behind it. So I can transfer that to another learning situation, and then I can go on. And if you think about a lot of learning situations, if you answer, a multiple choice question or something like that on knowledge, you're not going to get that level of feedback. You're not going to get that kind of element. So having that deliberately designed feedback into the experience, Paul, as you pointed out, really makes the difference in terms of what's going to happen for the transfer. The other thing, practice is about transfer. And a lot of learning, we ignore that transfer, right? We think, oh, if you know knowledge, you can go ahead and do it, right? So I could tell you, I have a little bit of knowledge of, LLM and general preformative transformers and stuff like that. I can't program it, right? That's the mechanic. I'm just the driver, right? I'm just the driver. So if we really want people to know it, you've got to practice. Okay, Carl, if you really want to be able to talk about LLMs, you program an LLM, let's see you do it, right? So that's the same thing that we need to do in terms of, and I know I'm beating this drum, but in terms of allowing people to do that and then give them that feedback. That's what the journeyman gave to the apprentice, right? Now, sometimes it was nasty, like, you idiot, don't ever do that again, right? Put us both in danger, right? But we can do it in a safe environment. Like, hey, this is how you sum something up in, let's say, Excel, and this is why you do it. and this is why you did it wrong, and this is what you have to do in the future. And so getting those variable levels of feedback are really going to help you. And the other thing that it can do, so there's the idea of something called the zone of proximal development, which means you learn best when you're on the edge of what you know and you keep learning and kind of going through there. AI can do that, right? You can ask AI to keep Carl at the zone of proximal development at the edge of what he knows. And what that does is so fascinating. So you think of the concept of flow, Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, who came up with the concept of flow, where you lose track of time and everything. Over up here's too hard, down here's too easy. But what happens is, as we start to learn, we go through the too easy, right? Because we've gotten it, right? So we got it. We know what we're doing, no problem. And then it becomes boring. And then it's like, why do I have to go to this training? I already know how to sell. This is really boring. I don't want to do it. But what if you started out like, okay, here's the sales situation, and you're like, wow, that's a tough situation. Let me see if I can actually sell this product. And sell the product, and it goes, okay, now your next call is a little bit harder, right? And now you have to kind of go through there. And your harder is different than Carl's harder, because Carl doesn't know how to sell anything. So he's going to start with the very basic, and then he's going to move up. So what AI can do is it can scale up your experience and expertise for you as you go through that process. And we as designers of instruction need to say, okay, we're going to set this framework, and here's how it works. Here's the triggers. Here's the milestones. Here's the things that they need to know. Here's how it relates to our company. Here's what everybody should be thinking about. When you put all that together, that's our job now, framing that picture, putting the things together to make them work. We had talked about earlier, we're kind of the architects, right? Now we have to be good architects. We can't put the refrigerator door in the wrong place, it bangs the wall. But we can set all that up so the AI can work within that blueprint.
Yeah. How many years haven't we had personalized learning as a thing, the holy grail, etc.? And every new wave of technology has tried to, or we've tried to find an application for it, the Netflix of learning, personalized learning. But maybe AI actually provides an opportunity for that.
Let's hope so.
You can also, this is an opportunity to get better measurement through that whole process too, and have a more concrete linkage between their performance improvement and their probably performance improvement that is happening on the job too.
Exactly. I mean, so the one thing that we were, I recently wrote an article for a training industry magazine about 3 levels of metrics for gamification. And the first level was engagement. So you have to be engaged. You have to have the learner engaged. The second level is learning. And we're pretty good at measuring learning. But the third level is that performance. And to make that work, it has to be tied back to KPIs. It has to be tied back to the performance measures of the organization. People always say to me, Carl, what's the ROI of, action first learning? Or what's the ROI of this kind of instruction? And I said, well, what's the performance goal we're trying to meet? So if meeting that performance goal is going to increase sales, that's the ROI, is those increased sales, right? So what we are missing is this huge gap between the data of what people are learning and the data of how people are performing. I saw an article one time said something like 80% of organizations don't measure, performance of the learning. And I would argue it's probably even higher. And part of that reason is because we don't know to ask those questions. Part of the reason is I've run into this, which is really interesting, like sales, right? We want to see if learning drives sales. And they're like, well, we're not going to give you that information, right? That's sales information. I'm like, well, but aren't we all on the same team here? Like, am I missing something? But organizations, and I found the bigger the organization, the more siloed and protective they are of their data. But that's something that again, we should push for. Like, hey, if you want to know if training's effective, you got to give me this data. And we have to do a baseline, and then we have to do the intervention and then post. Now, ideally, we'd have 2 groups, but you can't get that because you don't want to get one group training, one group not training. But at least we can see the knowledge, the performance lift. Are people getting better? And again, and the mistake is then we take all the credit. Wow, they want to, but there's probably sales incentives. There's probably marketing. I mean, so we can't take all the incentive, but again, we're on the same team. So we need to contribute to that.
Mm-hmm. Quality of leads and all those other things that are way out of our ability to have any influence on as well. Yeah. Carl, you've mentioned that the book is available at the ATD bookstore. Are you going to the ATD conference?
I don't have a hotel room at the moment, so I might
Oh.
be sleeping on the street. However, I am going to the conference. I'm on the wait list anyway. So, but yeah, I'm going to go there.
Filled up fast.
Right. I know it did. Yes. So yeah, I'm doing a 20-minute session actually on Action First Learning, and I'm going to do it like a choose your own adventure book.
Ooh,
So
Nice.
during the presentation, the audience is going to have opportunities to, do you want me to talk about this or talk about this? Right. And then we're going to go and do that. So that should be a lot of fun. I haven't, it's an experiment in terms of a live presentation, but I think it'll be a lot of fun.
hopefully your audience gives you a safe space that day.
Yes.
and
Well, if you're
of course,
early. Okay.
I was just going to say, of course, you'll then take all of your learnings from that and put them into the next book.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't do this.
Yeah. Choose your own adventures this
Right.
time around. No, let's put some more of those in. Yeah.
Right. Why didn't you cover this?
Yeah. So awesome. So folks can have a chance to catch up with you if they're going to the ATD conference. And obviously the book is out now, is it?
It is. Yeah. It's
Okay.
out now. It's on Amazon, or what's that phrase? Wherever better books are sold or whatever like
Yeah.
that.
In
Wherever
all-
any books are sold, maybe.
all the usual places.
All the
anyway.
usual
Yeah,
places.
yeah, right on. Carl, it's been such a joy having you with us. It's always great to catch up with you and hear the things that you're doing. I find that your role in the university gives you kind of like maybe like a bit of a fishbowl kind of, view. You can see things going on and help us understand from a different perspective versus maybe folks who are up to their eyeballs in the trenches, maybe
Stuck in the fishbowl.
yeah, stuck in the fishbowl
Right.
with the goldfish memory. Anyway, that's a whole other Malcolm Gladwell.
Whole
book,
other,
I think.
yeah.
But anyway, cool. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's been a great chat.
Thanks for having me. This is you guys are so much fun. So
Awesome.
Thanks,
Folks,
Carl.
appreciate it.
Don't forget, every episode of Instructional Designers in Offices Drinking Coffee is brought to you by the folks here at Domino. We help teams develop, manage, and distribute L&D content efficiently at scale. Check us out, domino.com. Yeah, you got to know about the spelling, but you'll figure it out, right? Anyway, hey, gang, time to dance on out. Join us again in two Wednesdays from now. Thanks, folks.